Hi there, I'm Ariane Comstock, and if you've come here looking for sex, violence, passion in every possible beautiful way, you will see Mozart's Cosi fan tutte. It's actually a comedy where most operas are full of bloodshed and terrible things. Cosi fan tutte is only about emotional distress and infidelity. We all know what that can cause. It was written by Mozart, one of his last operas, together with Lorenzo da Ponte, who was a fabulous poet, adventurer, lived the life of Don Giovanni, for which he also wrote the libretto. But in this opera, he explores the idea of if it's really necessary to have only one partner for a lifetime. Here's the nasty story of Cosi fan tutte. I chose to play the Cosi fan tutte before Luisa Miller because it did chronologically come before Verdi, and I think you will definitely see the difference in the music. And I usually must remember to say Cosi fan tutte, which means they all do it. Feminine. It's feminine. I think that's because they take it for granted that men do it, but the fact that women do it comes as a great surprise to everyone. It is, of course, by Mozart. When was he born?
1756.
Yes, my darlings, yes. It is one of his, I think it's his 15th opera. He wrote 626, composed 626 pieces. So it's just a drop in the bucket, but it's a beautiful drop. It's just, that sound of it, it makes you feel happy and good about the world. This is a very sardonic, cynical piece, okay? And the thing that is confusing about it is the couples. And so that's why I'm writing them on the board. Guglielmo, the G is only there, so you say yeah, Guglielmo. Dorabella is the mezzo, and she is in love with Ferrando, who is the tenor. Fior di Ligi, which by the way means lily, like a fleur de lis in French, loves Guglielmo, who is a baritone or can be also sung by a bass.
Why do you think the Mets decided to do it in Coney Island?
I think it was because the waitress costumes in 1940 were so attractive. As compared to the hoop skirts and the brocades and everything of the time when it was set. And the important character, they're not the central characters, but they're the most important characters. Don Alfonso is a gentleman who is a friend of the two men and also of the two girls who seem to be traveling from Ferrara. And he makes a bet with the two men that they're fiancés whom they're going to marry probably that day. It all takes place in one day because everything was supposed to at that time. And he makes a bet with the two men that their fiancés will be unfaithful, each with the other one. Okay, this is the snarky sort of beginning of the plot. If you can remember that much, and Despina is one of those wonderful soubrette characters. They do sort of the deus ex machina, if you will. She gets all the action going, and she's the clever one. She's very charming. It's typical what we call a soubrette part. That means that she's pert, she's saucy, she is not of the class that the main characters are, but she's the smartest one. She's sort of the female Figaro, if you will. She is, it's a type, you know, it's a type of singer. And Kathleen Battle, I think, absolutely portrayed that type of character. They're dainty and charming and have beautiful light soprano voices. It's an absolute type. I'll tell you the plot first before we get to the musical thing. They make this bet, and so the two men have to get themselves out of the way, so to speak. And so they announce that they have been called off to war. And the girls mourn it, and oh my God, they're so desperate, and they swear they will be eternally faithful. And there's nothing, and they will wait for them forever, and they're the only loves that they ever had in the world. You know the kind of thing you say. And so then the two men disappear, and that beautiful trio you just heard was them waving goodbye as their two lovers are supposedly sailed away with all the accoutrements. They have uniforms and swords clanking and everything like that. And everyone's terribly unhappy. Ha ha. So now we have, the girls are left alone and they're mourning and they're so sad. And the men dress themselves as Albanians. You must remember that in Mozart's day, and maybe today, I don't know what Albanians wear, probably blue jeans or something. I don't know what they're going to wear in the Coney Island set of the men. But they dress themselves as Albanians. They have big mustaches. And you know that in opera, if you put on a mustache, nobody recognizes you. I mean, that's a rule of the opera. And they come back, and they woo the two girls in every possible way. I mean, you're sitting there, you think, this is so mean, this is so mean. But it works musically, and it gives base for a lot of confusion. And Despina comes in, and the two men, they're dying of love. The Albanians are dying of love, each for the other's girlfriend. And they commit suicide by drinking poisons, arsenic or something. Who knows? It was ginger ale or something. And they're dying there on stage. It's so terrible. And Despina dresses herself as a doctor. And no one recognizes her because she usually has a beard. Anyway, it is an extremely charming thing. And here Kathleen Battle is saying, as Despina is saying, preaching her philosophy to the two girls. She says any woman of 15 knows that, you know, a little wink here, a little wink there, and that everyone swears to be faithful, but nobody really means it. So, una donna a 15 anni. Isn't the production beautiful?
Yeah,
I mean, it's basically, it's always that way, I think, and it's really adorable. So here she comes in and she pretends to have magnetic powers because the men have already supposedly drunk poison, which we all know wasn't poison, and they're dying, you know. And the girls are very upset because here are these men who love them so much and they've committed suicide for them. And they come in with all kinds of blandishments that you can imagine. And this is the scene where Despina comes in pretending to be the doctor.
Salvete amabile, spones, puelles. Parla un linguaggio che non sappiamo. Come comandano, dunque parliamo. Sul greco l'alamo, sul turco il vandalo, lo sveco il tartaro, sul cor parlar.
Tanti linguaggi per sé conservi, per sé conservi. negra che trista pelle.
Salvete amabili, spode, spode, con un linguaggio che non sappiamo. Che comandano non prepariamo, solca con l'oro, solca con il manto, lo aspetto interno, suon ancor parlare.
Anti linguaggi per se conservi, per se conservi. Quei miserabili, per ora osservi, presono il tossico che si può far.
Signor dottore, che si può fare? Saper bisognami, io l'acqua pione e concilindole, e l'acqua tione, se calda o friggida, se poca o molta, se non avvolta, ovvero più.
Risale al seno, signor dottore, e dentro il peppero, ragazzi amor, e di non sorso se mandar giù.
Non vi affannate, non vi turbate, non vi turbate, non vi affannate, non vi affannate, non vi turbate. Ecco una prova di mia virtù.
Eglia di un ferro, a man fornita.
Questo è quel pezzo di calamita, pietra mesmerica, che per l'origine dell'Alemagna che poi si celebre, l'Alfaccia
Che si muovono, torcono, scuotono, poi terra e frane, sotto il cuotono.
Allor la fronte tenete su, e così pronte, tenete forte, tenete forte, forte, forte. Arrive, siete da morte.
It's very charming. It's very cynical, of course. In the end, they come back from war to find their sweethearts are each marrying another man and are very disillusioned, but somehow they forgive them and they get married to the original sweetheart, and I'm sure they live happily ever after. Never seeing the other, whatever it is. It's very cute. The Met has decided that this would be better to set in Coney Island. I have seen, and I think I've shown in class many years ago, beyond human memory, the production that was done in a diner. Do you remember that I showed that when we were in the other building? We had, and it's got to be similar. And it's something, naturally, the plot in itself is absolutely ridiculous and could never, ever happen today. But they set it in modern times. But I sort of like it better the other way. But you decide, and it'd be very interesting. It'll be fun to see. They have a boa constrictor, which seems to be the first time, amazingly enough, that they've had a boa on stage, a boa constrictor. They've had many boas. And a sword swallower. And, you can imagine trying to sing while all this is going on next to you. But it won't be boring.
I always thought we should do Cosi at the Coney Island sideshow. So there's an idea of being away from home and the idea of the fairground and the sideshow being this magical place in which the rules are not quite the same as they are in everyday, ordinary life, as it were. The kind of deception would be part of the magic of being swept along by the fantasy of that world. The piece really is about the playfulness of identity swap and the kind of craziness of the interaction between the different sexes around love. We've picked kind of a period of Americana, kind of late 40s, early 50s. And when the boys are disguised up to try and deceive their respective girlfriends, They won't be dressed up as Albanian soldiers, as it is in the original. They're probably going to be dressed up as sexy carny workers. The starting point for the girls, we've decided that they're kind of away from home and they're on holiday, so they're staying in the local motel.
Despina is naughty, and she is mischievous, and she's bored. She's a servant, but she's confident. But she'd like to play a little game, at the suggestion of Don Alfonso. And I think, honestly, that she wants to get a little laugh from the whole situation, and maybe a little bit of money. She's pretty good at being a trickster.
It's a story about 6 human beings who manipulate one another for their own ends. It's about love, it's about loss, it's about jealousy, it's about betrayal, and it's about reconciliation and people finding themselves.
I'm basically hoping the audience get exactly what they want. It's fun, and it's funny, and it's beautiful, and got a very gorgeous atmosphere. But most of all, it's a show about love.